great to see kind of an upswing in questions being asked. So that's always a good sign that people are, in my opinion, as a coach, that people are taking things seriously and trying to absorb the training and the material and the methodology, and trying to ultimately improve their skiing. So it's really cool to see that. So I'm just going to go through some of the questions that we received online. So the first one is kind of chatting about fasted workouts and asking, doing long, slow, level one work. Does it make sense to do fasted workouts, and kind of what my experience is with that? Personally, I haven't ever emphasized fasting in a workout or ever prescribed it for athletes. I do know there are some successful endurance athletes who do like to try and do that in an effort to tap into the fat burning systems and to fire your metabolism in a way to burn fat instead of carbohydrates. But with that being said, my biggest recommendation is that your body burns what it eats. So if you want to burn some fat, emphasize that. I would recommend looking at maybe having a breakfast, or the meal before your training session maybe has a bit higher fat density. So it's maybe looking at eating some quality nuts or avocados, things like that. I'm not saying eat a stick of butter, but try to find some quality sources of fat so that you can burn that. If you're looking to burn that and tap into that metabolism, that'd be my recommendation, to make sure you're still fueling before training, because I think that's pretty important. Second question is looking at the days where we have prescribed 2 training sessions, so one in the morning and afternoon, and specifically that combines strength and roller skiing. The concern is, or the question, not concern necessarily, is that they feel that sometimes doing strength in the morning or before they ski can jeopardize the quality of the ski because of some soreness in muscles, specifically the stabilizing muscles we rely on a lot with skiing. So with my recommendation for that would be to prioritize the roller ski session in the morning, and then looking at doing your strength work in the afternoon, so that you can make sure that you're spending the highest amount of quality time you can on your roller skis and not jeopardizing that at all. So that would be my recommendation. And with those types of things too, make sure you have multiple hours in between those training sessions, so you're not just going straight into the next one. It's important for recovery. So make sure, my rule of thumb is 4 hours in between a given training session. I know triathletes and stuff do it differently, but we're skiers, and that does have some research behind it. So I'd recommend trying to get in at least 4 hours between training sessions. And then another question is, with this time in the off season, how should one be pushing their strength training? Examples would be, should everything be done to failure, 5 rep maxes, and kind of what effect does that have on the muscles and subsequent recovery? Right now, I think that the focus should be on doing quality movements in the strength room. So looking at maybe working about 80% of your max. So if you're doing 10 reps, maybe you could do, with a given weight for an exercise, maybe you could do, your maximum would be 12 or 13 reps, but you're trying to do 10 reps really well and still pushing yourself, trying to get your joints to be loaded properly and to fire the correct muscles and in the correct pattern and things like that. Because that's what those strength exercises are there for. They're not there to necessarily make you sore. You just want them to aid in the functionality of your joint movement and your ability to kind of stack yourself on your skis and use that power. So that'd be my recommendation. Kind of do 80% max for a given exercise instead of reps and stuff. The next question is also about strength. So it's asking about the general or functional strength plan and the difference between those, and when you should go from general to functional and what point in the year. So right now, all through the summer and into the fall, I'd recommend staying on the general strength plan, as we're looking to build general strength. We don't need super ski specific strength. So as you see your training take a turn to more ski specific, your strength should as well. So when you're getting into that kind of that late fall, early winter, where things really do become ski specific, I think that your strength should coincide with that, and that the movements that you're doing in the strength room should be more geared towards that, and a functionality based approach to ski to make sure that you're using the finer, smaller muscles that you need in skiing, and then carrying that through the winter. will be beneficial as well. Another question is about heart rates and basically training zones and how those can correlate. So the question is, if you know your training zones at the end of a race season, how should those be adopted to the next training season? So I would kind of take a step back from this and actually say that you should, your heart rate zones and training zones will fluctuate throughout the year. And they're probably at their best in terms of your L3 is closest to your level 3 threshold is closest to your max heart rate when you're in peak fitness. So that's probably in the winter for us. And then those things need to reset a bit after the year, and expect that to actually get a little bit worse at the start of the summer. And then you're building that through the summer and fall. So I would recommend, if you have, this person does have access to a physiology lab and stuff, I would run at the beginning of the summer, actually run a lactate test and see where your heart rate zones are, and then kind of repeat that at the end of the summer, early fall, and see the improvement there, and then actually compare those with your racing zones from last year. And then also knowing that your ski specific zones from the racing season might not apply directly to dryland training. So it could be beneficial to know what your zones, your training zones are for running versus roller skiing, and that those could be a bit different than what it looks like on the snow. So yeah. And then another question is kind of about, so like 6-minute bounding up a hill. If you don't have access to a 6-minute hill, which I'd say in the Midwest is a pretty common theme, and if you only have a 1-minute hill at best, I would challenge yourself to find terrain that's very rolling, and you maybe only have 30 seconds to a minute climbs, but you have a lot of them. So finding maybe if you have ski trails by your house, go onto the ski trails and do your 6-minute efforts on there, and know that you're going to maybe push a little bit on the uphills, float on the downhills, and try and run with poles right at threshold on the flats. That'd be my recommendation. That's something that we adopted a lot at Northern Michigan, where I skied, and we don't have super long climbs, and we'd go out to our home race course, and we would do our efforts out there, and you get a lot of quality challenging terrain still, and it challenges your muscles quite a bit still, even if you don't have a 6-minute uphill. So and then the other question is, this person only skate skis, and I'm sure that there are other people out here who also only skate or only classic. And when the training plan calls for classic sessions, does it make sense to substitute skate training for those classic sessions? My recommendation would actually be to, and I'm sorry, you have to hear this twice, because we talked about this yesterday too, would be to actually do a double pole sessions when they say classic. If you can, maybe half of them you do double pole instead of just skating. And I would say this because double poling efficiency will directly improve your skating efficiency. You load your muscles and joints and stack your weight very similarly in the double pull as you do, especially in the V2. And it's really, if you're a strong double puller, you'll likely be a strong skate skier. So I would actually challenge yourself, and you can do that with skate poles and skate roller skis. Depending on how comfortable you are on that equipment. There's no ratchets on skate roller skis, but if you're comfortable with that, I don't think you need to get classic equipment to do that. And if you're never going to classic race, I probably wouldn't buy classic equipment. I would just try to double pull on your skate equipment when it says to do classic sessions. And then maybe you do half of the prescribed classic sessions are done double pulling. The other half are done skating. And then maybe that evens out a little bit to being more classic or double pull once you get more confident with that technique. And yeah, that would be my recommendation. Another one is kind of equipment based. Noticing more rear wheel wear than front wheel wear. I would circle this back to technique, and I would actually probably assume that you're probably doing what we call a wheelie in the ski world, is that you're planting. The first thing that plants when you step onto that ski is the back wheel, which means it's spending more time on the ground, and therefore it's going to wear faster. I would challenge yourself to think about trying to plant your roller ski and kind of glide onto that ski with both wheels on the ground at the same time. That's going to create a stronger, a better ability to glide and ride on that ski and push off of it. And then also you can rotate your wheels as well. That's not a bad idea. I would do it, if you do rotate your wheels, do it semi-frequently so that when you rotate them, that's not a huge difference. Doesn't feel that big of a difference. Maybe, once a month or something, you rotate your front and back wheels, just to be honest with that, I think is a good idea. Yeah, but I would bring it back to technique and try to see if get some video of yourself and see if you're actually landing with your back wheel first, and then try to shift that to landing with both wheels at the same time, or if anything, your front wheel, because that means you're on top of your ski really well. Another one is a session. So this is about doing the accelerations or speeds during distance sessions. So a lot of our distance sessions, especially the ODs or over distance, have pickups in them. So 20-second accelerations. And so the question is it's not possible to go from level 1 to level 5 in that 20 seconds in terms of heart rate. So I wouldn't look at that in terms of heart rate. I would look at that in terms of effort. So you're trying to, within the 20 seconds, go from skiing at level 1 to skiing at level 5. So it's an acceleration through the gears when you're doing that. And don't look at it as you're trying to get your heart rate up, because you can't go from, this person's example is 132 beats to 188 beats in 20 seconds. You kind of have to be like a superhuman to do that. So I would think that you're probably not able to do that, and look at it as an effort-based thing rather than a heart rate thing. And you're just trying to go through the gears and break up the monotony of those long, easy, slow over distance sessions is kind of the goal of that. And then the last question here is, so if there's a non-recovery week where we have time and energy to do an additional workout, what would you suggest adding in and prioritizing? Additional strength, additional level 1 distance. You should look at like what you feel your strengths and weaknesses are at that time of the year. And, when you're adding in a session, those things can actually, what you add in can change. So right now, if you feel like, oh, I could benefit from a lot of strength, or I could definitely get stronger, maybe you do add in a more functional strength training session. If you do have the time, I would probably err just in general towards adding in, an easy hour of a distance level 1 training, just because if you have the time and energy for that, that's definitely going to be a great way to maintain and improve your fitness. So that would be my priority. If I were just speaking more generally to all of you, but, take a look and see, what do you think is going well with your training? What are things you can improve on? And maybe pinpointing those weaknesses, and that extra hour could be a great time to address weaknesses you feel you may have. But yeah, those are the questions. Thank you guys for submitting them, and lots of really good questions. And yeah, like I said, it kind of gives me the impression that you guys are thinking about your training and your skiing, and that's ultimately hopefully going to help you get better. So that's good to see.